Hello, people of the internet. This is another episode of Kaiju's Corner. I am your host, Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir, and here with me is, of course, the one and only Deadpoolzilla.
Hello, everyone.
So, what are we going to be talking about today, DPZ?
We are going to be talking about some news that came out of Toho.
Yes, and this is going to be the news concerning the future, or the apparent future, of Godzilla and the entire, giant monster kaiju brands that have been associated with Toho since 1954. So, for a lot of people, for a lot of us Godzilla fans, we have been very curious as to what Toho plans to do with Godzilla, especially in the wake of the 2014 film by Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures. It seems like ever since that movie turned out to be an international success, Toho was a lot interested in reviving the Godzilla brand. We ended up with 2016's Shin Godzilla. We have which was a crazy huge success, and it ended up being Japan's favorite movie of that year. Afterwards, there was the Godzilla anime, which has been...
Which to quote Immortan Joe, mediocre!
It's been quite mixed, to say the least, in terms of the reaction. I know Shin Godzilla was also had a very mixed reaction, but I feel like that one was still an overall success and did gain a lot of attention, even from people who weren't even Godzilla fans. And then it's funny enough, I'll even mention that whenever any of my child students happen to see me wearing some Godzilla paraphernalia, they immediately go, "Oh, is that Shin Godzilla?" So they don't really refer to it at the character as Godzilla anymore. Some of them kind of refer to it as Shin Godzilla because to them, that's the only Godzilla they're aware of. Because, Japan has gone without a Godzilla for the last 12 years up until that point. But anyways, Godzilla is now back in the public consciousness, and they got the Shin Godzilla, they got the anime. But what else are they planning? Well, a while back, actually last year, Shinji Higuchi mentioned in an interview at G-Fest of all places that Toho was not allowed to make another live-action Godzilla movie until 2020 or after 2020. Right, because
of Kong versus Godzilla.
Right, because so I guess it was that agreement where they don't want to confuse audiences with two different versions of Godzilla going on at the same time. I know for some people they may think, who can confuse Shin Godzilla with Godzilla 2014? Well, a lot of people can, get their stuff mixed up. I mean, even I was confused when I saw Godzilla 2000 come out right after Godzilla 1998. But anyways, they agreed to this, so that way they won't, step on each other's toes at that point and confuse audiences. But it looks like they were allowed to make Shin Godzilla, because there was a large gap between Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla King of the Monsters. But in the time between then, it looks like they were able to make the Godzilla anime. It's kind of like their loophole to still make money off of Godzilla while still, keeping the live action part of the franchise to Legendary Pictures and Warner Brothers with King of Monsters and the upcoming Godzilla vs. Kong, or whatever it's going to be titled. So, what they plan to do after Godzilla, many people suspected that they were going to do a Shin Godzilla 2. For other people, they're thinking they might do some other reboot of some kind. Well, it looks like we finally got our answer when there was a recent, what was it called? A recent press conference with, I actually lost the article right here, but I'm going to see if I can find it right now, on Gormaru Island, which was a really great Facebook page that provides a lot of news concerning a lot of different Godzilla related or even kaiju related news. So, but essentially, what they want to do is Toho plans on making a cinematic universe of their very own, in which they can have characters like Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, all have their own movies while also taking place in the same world. So,
which hasn't been a thing. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, what were your thoughts or initial thoughts on the on this general announcement?
I think it's really cool. This hasn't been a thing since, I don't know, the 70s. But that's things like people are like, oh, it's another shared universe. I'm like, do y'all forget that Toho wrote the book on shared universes?
Well, technically it was Universal Studios.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was Universal, then Toho. But yeah, Toho did this before. I mean, granted, it wasn't a shared universe until, Godzilla versus Mothra. And then, the following, which was, Ghidorah, which was their equivalent to Justice League, or a better Avengers is probably the better term.
Right. And let's be honest, whenever Universal and Toho did the whole shared universe thing, it was never planned. It was just, one movie at a time. And it was kind of, they were making shit up as they went along. So if they just said, hey, let's just throw Mothra into our next Godzilla movie, because why not? Everyone was like, sure, let's do that. Or if they said, oh, hey, let's take that one dinosaur from Frankenstein versus Baragon and throw him into Destroy All Monsters, they should said, sure, why not? So
yeah.
It was like they played very fast and loose with this sort of filmmaking. But it was something that really gravitated to a lot of people. It was like, oh, cool, here are these monsters that I recognize from other movies, or these are movies that have been, these are characters that I saw, or these are characters I want to know more about, and so they want to see them in the movies that they came from. I know I wouldn't have known about Atragon if it weren't for Amanda's appearance in the Godzilla franchise. Yeah.
So the big thing with this is that, this gives the opportunity for other kaiju to get the spotlight again, because that hasn't happened since, what? Rebirth of Mothra 3?
Yeah, exactly. And we all know how the Rebirth of Mothra series turned out.
Exactly. But my thing with it is that, I think it's a cool idea to see, other kaiju get the spotlight. Obviously, I think they're going to start with Godzilla, and then other monsters are going to come after, which I guarantee the next monster would probably be Mothra to get her movie.
Right. And for the people who were hoping that we would get a continuation of Shin Godzilla, they never outright stated that Shin Godzilla was canceled, but they said that it wasn't essentially they said that it wasn't like the right move in the long run, because they said they want to have a world that can continue forward. In other words, they want a continuity that can make them more money than just focus on a Shin Godzilla on a more realistically styled Shin Godzilla continuity. Let's see. Trying to look for the actual quote here. Okay, here we go. So according to, what was his name? I think it was Keiji Ota. Let's see. I'm trying to find out Keiji Ota, what was his relation to Toho. He is the Chief Godzilla Officer, Keiji Ota. Oh boy, would I love to have that. I would love to have that title.
He's the Kevin Feige of Toho, essentially.
Right. I guess he's the guy who is in charge of planning out various details on the franchise's future. But let's see here. The quote that everyone wants to focus on. According to Keiji Ota, Shin Godzilla was a huge hit, but instead of thinking of doing the obvious idea of making a Shin Godzilla 2, instead think about a world that can be used for a long time. I'd rather make a World of Godzilla. For example, in the year when Mothra was featured, commercialization centered around Mothra. Commercialization is not limited to just figures, but also from daily necessities to apparels, games, and so on. There are various things, so I would like to use Godzilla steadily. So it looks like he doesn't want to saturate the market with Godzilla, but like you mentioned before, give other monsters the spotlight. And so, do you think this means that we're gonna scrap Shin Godzilla continuity altogether? Or do you think this means that they could potentially bring Shin Godzilla into this universe? Because
that's an interesting question, because it depends on if they want to totally reboot and start from scratch and leave that in its own universe, which, again, this is Toho. That's I wouldn't put it past them to do that.
And they did that multiple times in the Millennium series.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is that it would be interesting to see if they would just be willing to have, because it was such a realistic take on a giant monster attack with Shin, and just throw in all these other elements in here. But I think they're going to do this. I think what will be best if they just left Shin alone for now and just focus on the shared universe. Because I think it would be best if you're going to do this. If you're going to do this, do it from the start. Don't, don't go with the one thing that is treated that is essentially an art piece and try to
turn it into something it's not.
Yeah,
because I think the filmmakers were making this as like a one and done project because none of them knew if they were gonna make a sequel out of this. So they left the ending as ambiguous as possible. And so even though a lot of people have stated, a lot of Godzilla fans got their hopes up thinking that there was going to be a Shin Godzilla 2, but really when you look at all the different supposed hints that there may be a Shin Godzilla 2, it was mostly just like the director and the actors and producers saying, I don't know, maybe I'd like to do a Shin Godzilla 2, but it's obviously up to Toho to decide. So it was never confirmed that a Shin Godzilla 2 was ever in the works or was ever planned. Rather, it's just people saying maybe or I'd like to do it. So, but it was never anything official. So here it's like they don't want to make a Shin Godzilla 2 because they're more interested in doing a lot of this other stuff. And I guess it's like, I'm thinking Shin Godzilla works best as a standalone project, and that...
honestly, I think it did its job of bringing hype back to Godzilla if in Japan.
Right. I would definitely agree to that, because the thing is, I mentioned this before in my live stream series, Audio Synchronicity, that Japanese people really don't care about a franchise unless it's constantly being brought up and kept in the public consciousness. Like, the reason why stuff like Dragon Ball Z is so popular is because there's always new movies and animes and video games and merchandise coming out to keep it in the spotlight. If it's not kept in the spotlight with new media and merchandise, it's going to be quickly forgotten, like Gamera. Like in Japan, nobody gives a fuck about Gamera because, there hasn't been a movie in over 10 years. So people have already forgotten about it. Like, if I bring it up to my students, they'll be like, oh yeah, that was a thing. Yeah, I remember that. Kind of like, what's like something very obscure nowadays that we forget about? Well, I guess like Big Bad Beetleborgs. We haven't seen Big Bad Beetleborgs in forever, so most of us kind of forgot about it. Street Sharks. Well, actually, yeah. People still ironically bring up Street Sharks. But you know what? Extreme Dinosaurs. Nobody ever talks about Extreme Dinosaurs.
They should, because it was extreme.
Yeah, fuck Street Sharks. Why don't people talk about Extreme Dinosaurs more?
Exactly. I remember. Well, that's a lie. I don't remember shit about Extreme Dinosaurs.
Oh, I remember about Extreme Dinosaurs. Something's really rocking on planet number 3, for we have got prehistoric company.
a colossal fossil fume. Feud. Yeah, I can't do the song right. Shit. Anyway, but getting back to the point.
Extreme dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. That's what we should do. We should do commentaries on Extreme Dinosaur episodes.
Yes, we should. I bet you will get flagged and copyrighted to hell, but we should totally do that. We should live stream commentaries of Extreme Dinosaurs. But anyways, God, I want that show to be on DVD so badly. I think they only released 3 VHSs. Extreme commentaries. All right, so back to Shin Godzilla. Yes, I think it works better as a standalone installment in the franchise, and I don't think it would really fit into this whole world of Godzilla, because I think that would kind of betray the nature of this more down-to-earth take on the franchise. Or, down-to-earth take on the King of the Monsters. So trying to force it into a shared universe would be kind of crazy, unless they did something weird like have Shin Godzilla exist in a parallel universe and then he crosses over into this universe. I think that would be kind of interesting. But other than that, I'm okay with them leaving Shin Godzilla alone.
Yeah, same. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing is that what monsters do you pick to obviously outside of Godzilla, who do you pick to have films for this shared universe? Because they stated that it would be a Godzilla film every 1 to 2 years.
Right.
Like a new Kaiju. And this is the big thing of what monsters right out of the gate, because obviously you're going to start with Godzilla, but who do you pick up after that?
It's very difficult because a lot of this announcement is kept very vague. They're saying maybe we can do this. It's possible we can do this. So he's just throwing out a bunch of details in order to get audiences hyped on this idea, but nothing is ever really confirmed. But Since they since they already name dropped Mothra and Ghidorah, I think those would be like the most obvious ones.
Honestly, I would.
For anyone, I do want to apologize for because I'm using Facebook to look at the Gormaro Island article. I do apologize for OBS picking up the Facebook notifications. I know Deadpoolzilla cannot hear them on his end, but I know in the recording the audience will hear this, and I do apologize for that.
But that's the thing, like a Ghidorah solo film, King Ghidorah solo film. I would be down for that.
I would definitely, I can definitely see them being like, this could be like a Ghidorah prequel story in space, focusing on aliens, but I know they're not going to do that because Hollywood and Japan seem to be against the idea of making movies solely about alien characters.
Yeah, I don't know why, I mean...
Because people can't relate to them green men from outer space.
Well, you could just, make them look human, but they're aliens. You could do that. I want to see Ghidorah the Destroyer, the Ghidorah we know from Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster that was just I'm just wiping out planets left and right, I'm
guess you can wait until the third anime movie comes out. If he shows up at all.
Fuck that.
Oh.
But yeah, so again, there's a possibility for a new Rodan film.
Right.
Gigan would be cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, you could totally have a Jet Jaguar movie.
I want that.
Me too. Let's see. You can have a Mechagodzilla movie. Maybe just make up a new villain for him to fight.
And that's actually something I want to bring up is that with these monster movies, with these new kaiju films, you've done the possibility of having new monsters show up in these films to fight the old monsters, or have new monsters in this shared universe. Because there's a good, strong chance that some of these films we get could feature, instead of classic monsters, we could be seeing new kaiju show up in here, and that's fascinating to me. Having some new blood in here.
Right, and then imagine these are the new blood that will get their asses kicked by the old blood.
Yeah. But still, I wouldn't mind seeing some new faces in the Toho universe.
That is true. It would be very cool to see that kind of stuff happen, and even have maybe even pull off a Spider-Man Homecoming where you introduce a new character in someone else's another monsters movie, and then have that spin off into their own movie.
Yeah. I guarantee you that Toho's taken notes from the MCU.
Oh yeah, definitely. In fact, let's go down the list of the points that the what do you call it, that Keiji Otos mentioned, the official chief Godzilla officer of Toho. So the first point he mentioned, distributed by Warner Brothers in 2014, the Hollywood version of Godzilla, produced by Legendary Pictures, became a worldwide hit. Shin Godzilla, which assigned Ano Hideaki as its, because they do the whole backwards name thing, as its director back in 2016, also became a mega hit with a box office revenue of 8.25 billion yen in its domestic market. Meanwhile, the 2017 anime movie has been releasing one film after another in its perspective series. Also in 2017, I had opened the first official goods shop at the Shinjuku Marui Annex, the official Godzilla store. The opportunity came from Hollywood version back in 2014 with a box office revenue record of about 55 billion yen worldwide. The inside of the company became excited all at once. In fact, Toho had been absent from Godzilla film productions for 10 years since Final Wars, and although I have released a new work every year since the year 1999, there have been ruts. Unfortunately, I couldn't put any brakes on the decline mobilization. Point number 2. Established in 2014, the Godzilla Strategic Conference, accompanied by divisions of various departments, where the elite were gathered and discussions were held on the future of Godzilla. The 2014 Legendary had announced the Monsterverse. From it, Godzilla 2 was announced for 2019 with the involvement of Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah featuring within the sequel, as well as the sequel installment Godzilla 3 for 2020. Which I was informed was going to pit Godzilla in a confrontation against King Kong. Now, first of all, how exactly do you make a touch point that fills up the spaces before then? When thinking it over, I believe that the easiest method was to increasing business growth within the peripheral of that was to keep films as the main core. So new works of live action and planned animation were started, but both required much needed time to release. So, to break away from this, it was pretty much confirms my suspicions that Shin Godzilla and the Godzilla anime trilogy were made solely to fill in the gap and to capitalize on the new success of the American Godzilla.
Yeah.
Point number 3 for 20. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that that was to be expected.
Yeah. And then point number 3, he goes into the idea of keeping Godzilla in the public spotlight. They put the Godzilla's head at the Shinjuku Toho building in 2015, and it's become like a neat tourist attraction. They mentioned 2016 being the Shin Godzilla movie, 2017 and 2018 being the 3 chapters of the Godzilla anime. Meanwhile, both 2019 and 2020, the baton will be passed down to the Hollywood version, and then after 2021, we're thinking of a potential strategy that publishes Godzilla movies uninterrupted at a rate of every 2 years, although there is a preference for a yearly pace as well. Now, let me stop right there and say, do not go the yearly paced method. It has always been detrimental for Toho's case. Like, 2 years works for Hollywood. I think it should work for Toho as well.
Yeah. Because Toho, I know you think this is your big chance because this is always you trying to break into the international market. Don't try to oversell yourself.
Don't go through burnout like you did on 2 different occasions. Let's see. Point number 4. The future of the series and its forwarding developments are very conscious of the method of shared universes. Okay, I already mentioned this. Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah can all share a single worldview, much like a Marvel movie where Iron Man and the Hulk can cross over with each other. It is said that each movie can be a possible film production where any one of them could lead a film of their own as the titular character. And then number 5, I mentioned before about Shin Godzilla 2 not really being the smartest thing for them right now. Number 6. Yeah. Actually, up until now, both Legendary and Warner Brothers has had the marketing rights for overseas markets, which is why we did not sell Godzilla t-shirts to foreign markets or develop smartphone games and deploy them for foreign markets. For those who don't know, there was like a recent Godzilla app on like the Google Play Store. I forgot what it was called, like Godzilla Collection or something. It featured like chibi designs of all the different Godzillas and Godzilla monsters, but we never saw that, and now the game has been removed from the Japanese Google Play and App Store, Apple App Store, I think. But in the future, we would like to do it all in-house by ourselves. For example, while this is just big talk, it would be nice to have a Godzilla theme park in Los Angeles. Also being considered are the possibilities of producing and selling Shinjuku Godzilla heads for display on top of foreign hotels within overseas territories. That'd be pretty neat. Both the Godzilla head and the theme park. The theme park, I feel like that we won't see that until like 2030 or 2035, realistically. But
yeah, I'll be an old man limping in. Yep, it did me good. Now I can. Yep. What? Come on, honey. I'm gonna limp in there, fuck you senseless, and then die of a heart attack with a smile on my face.
What? What are you talking about, sweetie? You're only like 38.
I know, but I've taken horrible care of my body. Damn cybernetics.
Let's see. So yeah, apparently they want to kind of streamline the whole merchandising rights and try to be like the sole maker of all the Godzilla merchandise, which would be pretty cool. But so far, I think Legendary has done quite a decent job with trying to make their own merchandise for Godzilla, and it looks like both Legendary and Toho have the same idea of trying to make toys through similar means, like NECA and SH Figure Arts / Monster Arts. But yeah, it'd be cool to have like one convenient Godzilla store selling everything for in Japanese and English.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room real quick.
Okay.
Effort. Let's put some effort into these movies because because if anything, and I'm not talking about Toho and their, animation department, because, that's
there
a
is
clear
no
sign.
animation department. They had to outsource to Polygon Pictures.
That's what I meant. I'm joking here.
Okay.
But what I mean, and it's not just them, but also look at like Universal and so many other films that try to do shared universes, is don't try to do too much ahead of time,
Right.
Don't try to be like Marvel right out the gate. Look at how well that worked for Universal's Dark Universe. Look how well that went for the DC universe. Look at those films and don't do those, be a movie first and foremost. I mean, look at Rampage. Take notes from Rampage of all things. Look at that. Just make a movie and leave it open for a sequel, and you can do little dabs here and there of, oh, this is a shared universe. Don't go overboard like it did Mummy. Just open that is like, hey, this is this is like not Muto, like, I don't know, G-Force or AMF, and we want these anomalies and whatnot. And yeah, Godzilla's like the big one. Now, here's the other thing. You think they're going to go back to the whole going to referencing 54 as a film, or just do another reboot of the franchise entirely?
I think if Shin Godzilla is anything to go by, I think it would be smart to just wipe the slate clean and ignore 1954, especially since like Godzilla 2014 clearly did that and established its own continuity. Something like Godzilla Rulers of Earth, like the IDW continuity back when it was still ongoing, also kind of established its own universe and its own lore. So I think that would be the smartest thing to do in this case, is to like abandon 1954 for good as a backdrop.
Yeah, okay. I
mean,
could agree with that.
You could still say Godzilla has been around and he's appeared in human history several times, but it's best just to, do what the 2014 film did and just like reference it instead of like referencing this specific movie with these specific details.
Yeah.
Now, let's see. The 7th point here. After the establishment of the Godzilla Strategic Conference, even the character's licensing has launched into a new direction. When using Godzilla in tie-in appearances or in other forms of media, restrictions were enforced, with one of them being to make sure that it is always a standalone product. Now, let me break away and mention Shin-Chan versus Shin Godzilla. That one was clearly like, a standalone product. Or any sort of Godzilla video game that came out, that was never connected to anything else. That was always like a single thing. Let's see. And while there are still rules in play, presently we haven't set up any specific or in particular. Ooh, another thing. There's always the rules and restrictions in terms of how Godzilla and his characters were portrayed in the IDW comics. There were always, certain things you couldn't do. So
yeah, of course.
Basically, what is being said is that Toho is gradually coming around to being somewhat less restrictive with Godzilla in tie-in media and etc., and are offering a bit more freedom of use. Now, if Godzilla in Hell is anything to go by, I think it could be. I know I mentioned that, keep repeating myself there, but I think got something like Godzilla in Hell is a sign that Toho is being indeed being less restrictive in terms of how Godzilla can be portrayed, especially when looking at something like Shin Godzilla.
Yeah, well, look at the other miniseries they did, like Godzilla Oblivion, and especially Rage Across Time. I mean, hell, they had Godzilla fighting the Greek gods and Orochi and the Hydra. Yeah, like, if that's any indication, yeah. But yeah, it's very clear that if that's really good news, if they want to be like, let's not be assholes to everyone.
Right. Let's see. And the last point they made was the attractiveness of Godzilla stems not only from its strength or the threat that it can be, but also from its humorous elements. And so it has become a way of thinking to explore such various aspects. So in other words, they don't want to take the character too seriously. Like, if any, especially when you look at like Shin-Chan versus Shin Godzilla, where that one was just a straight up comedy and they didn't take the character seriously at all, or at least the product.
Please, please, please don't do Godzilla Go.
Oh, they're totally, they're totally gonna do that. In fact, when Thundercats Roar came out, every artist started copying that like Cal art style, where it's like everyone was copying the same art style, like that Steven Universe, Gumball, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Adventure Time.
Yeah, I can't wait
Thundercats
for.
Roar.
I can't wait for Godzilla Screonk.
Dude, somebody already drew that, because like I mentioned, a bunch of artists online have started doing parodies of the modern day Cartoon Network style. So they would take like Ed and Eddie and they do it in the Thundercats Roar style. They took Godzilla and made Godzilla Screonk with the Thundercats Roar style. with the large big round cheeks and the weird bean shaped mouth. And like the simple eyes with the black dots, large black pupils. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can find it right now. But yeah, I bet you it's gonna be like Godzilla, what's it called? Godzillaland all over again. But
yeah.
But with a more generic art style. Let's see. No, not this one. It's actually 2 people did this. Okay, I found it. So now I'm gonna share this over to you via Facebook. Let's see.
Oh, Christ.
There we go. Do you have your Facebook open?
Oh, Christ.
This is exactly what Toho is going to see. They're going to look at Thundercats. They're going to look at Teen Titans Go. They're going to look at the new Ben 10. They're going to be like, this is it. This is where the money's at. Maybe
do a Godzilla action show? Is that too hard?
Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. Deadpoolzilla. We need to go for comedy and laughter and fart jokes.
Yeah, by the time they do that, the comedy phase will be phased out, and we'll be back to action cartoons.
We'll just, again, like I always say, we'll just have to wait and see for that. So anyways, It looks like there is quite a large number of plans made for Godzilla. It looks like they're really trying. It looks like they might try to appeal to a wider international crowd this time around, try to streamline things. It makes me wonder about the future of the American Godzilla series and whether or not they're going to continue forward with Godzilla post Godzilla versus Kong. Like, I know my friend Gorazard made a video about that, stating that he's worried that it may not continue.
They didn't say anything. Now that could be the end of Godzilla, but they didn't say anything about Kong. Now, did they?
Right. Well, we haven't heard about anything about the Monsterverse post Kong, Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah. But so maybe if they lose Godzilla, maybe they could stick with Kong, and maybe you could bring in some other American monsters. I don't know, bring back the Rhodosaurus, or I don't know, maybe some classic Harryhausen monsters. Is that too much to ask? Or I don't know, how about them? Or you've got a cat, or the Ymir from 20 Million Miles to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
People say America doesn't have any good kaiju. I disagree.
That is very true, but, as I've said already multiple times, we'll just have to wait and see what happens, man. But as one thing is for certain, and that is Godzilla as a brand, as a character, is certainly not going anywhere anytime soon. So, where can people find you, Deadpoolzilla?
They can find me on my own channel, and they can find me on Comic Universe, which is a channel that you would all hope to subscribe, because I hope Andreas left a link in the description below for that. And you guys can listen to me with my buddy C-Dubs talk about nerd stuff. Trust me, there's Godzilla content there, I swear to God.
Cool. In the meantime, you can also follow my channel. You can follow the Sons of Serizawa podcast, Son of Serizawa Facebook homepage, network homepage. We are currently getting ready for our 100th episode, which will be a live episode on Zazubar's channel at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday, the 28th. Let's see. Finally, you can also check out my Facebook page for my upcoming comic book, Primal Warrior Draco Azul. And afterwards, you can also check out the Facebook page, follow the Facebook page of Kaiju versus Cancer. We can follow any sort of updates pertaining to our ongoing charity that DPZ and I are a part of. That was started by Kaiju novelist Matthew Denian. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on this installment of Kaiju's Corner. I have been Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir.
And I have been Deadpoolzilla.
And until next time, everybody, take care.